You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. Welcome back. It is time to commence yet another broadcast week here on the old Options Insider Radio Network. Did you have a great weekend? Hope you did. Hope you had a nice, safe, fun. Just take a break from the old screens. Enjoy yourself. Hang out with some friends and family a little bit. But now we are back. We are ready to roll with episode uno here of the bi-weekly options extravaganza, known throughout the world as the Option Block. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com. As well as, of course, from the ever-compelling, at least we tend to think so. And it seems like a lot of you agree. I see the numbers. They tend to grow all the time, so that's always nice to see. You folks are liking what you hear. Remember, if you do like what you hear, take a minute, rate it and review it on wherever platform you're getting it on. It clearly does help the legion of new people discover the content these days. And, of course, if you want even more in your lives, you want to get, let's say, exclusive pro Q&As, as well as exclusive options oddities, as well as, it is October. That means we got to get the hat going. I think we'll do that on the Thursday show. I haven't set up the number generator here, so we'll announce the winner on the Thursday show of the September. How to believe September's already in the rearview mirror. The September Pro Trading Crate. So you had to get active in the Pro before the end of September to be entered into that drawing, listeners. How do you get entered into the drawing for October? As well as get access to all those exclusive shows, as well as options oddities, as well as the live stuff, as well as the giveaways, theoptionsinsider.com/pro, or for you really cool, interesting people, /secret club. That is the place to go to join us on the dark side. And hopefully you're ready to kick off your broadcast week, because we are here. And you know what we do, listeners. You should understand this game by now. It is time to commence our broadcast week in high style with our uber popular, ever infamous, Name That 80s Wrestler game. And last week we did one that was kind of inspired by the moment. Of course, the hurricane was bearing down on the southern U.S., so we went for the natural disasters. But I said it was inspired by current events, and more than a few of you thought it was today's wrestler instead. So we're going to go that route today and test your memory. This is another 80s wrestler. And I wonder how much of a hint I can give without really giving it away. And I will give no hints, and we shall see how you fare from there. I am, of course, joined by the unclest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, as well as the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. You cannot hear them. They are preparing themselves right now. And in a moment, we shall play the music, and then one of them will buzz in with their guess. Hopefully one of them will. Otherwise, there will be no winners this week. All right, listeners, let's go. Can you name that 80s wrestler? You got a buzz already. I had a feeling you kind of knows one of you don't. It's pretty famous music, I will say, out there. All right, we have Uncle Mike buzzing in. Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Manager. Uncle Mike, can you name that infamous 80s wrestler, sir?
Iran number one. I'll go with the Iron Sheik.
Yes, the Iron Sheik himself. Yes, a lot of folks thought it was him last week because of given all the unrest in Iran. That also is topical. So I will give it to you if I threw you with that clue last week. So we're going our old friend, the Iron Sheik. Yes, a great one. Good. You hear that music. It's cooler music than you remember it being. As a kid, you hear that music. You're like, boo, boo, we hate you. But, listen to it. Like, it's actually kind of a cool tune. So Iron Sheik. Better music than you think, listeners. As we keep on rolling, it is time for the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, buddy. Welcome to the trading block, the portion of the show where we break down what the heck is trading. And apparently, everyone was just sleeping the end of last week. They were taking a break from the markets, and they're back in to buy it all today. All is right with the world. Let's just rally this thing, baby, because that's what we're doing. S&P up over almost 2.1%. The Dow up almost 2.3%, about 2.25%, a little north of 2.25%, and the NASDAQ up about 1.7%. So we're not quite getting back everything that we've lost, but it's a little bit of a step for you bulls in the right direction, at least. For you bears, you think we're just dead cat bouncing for days out here. 3660 or so right now. Let's see, how high did we get? This is pretty much about the high of the day. 3663 was about the high of the day. So we're pretty close to it right now. Is this legit? Is this just a dead cat bounce? A lot of folks have a lot of thoughts on this. Speaking of your thoughts, listeners, we have a new question of the week right now. We'll get to a little bit later in the show, the results. But back in May, we asked you guys, we're kind of revisiting some of our questions. We've been tracking all the results throughout the year. And back in May, 43% of you guys said we needed VIX to spike to over 40 to signal a concession in that broad market. And given everything that's been going on, given the action we've seen in VIX, it seemed like an interesting time to revisit that. So we asked you quite simply, what level does VIX need to hit to signal the quote-unquote bottom in the market? Gave you 3 choices, and then kind of an other, if you will. VIX north of 40, VIX north of 50, VIX north of 60, or you're not down with that. You don't think there is a VIX spike necessary. You don't buy into that theory. Over there at Options to Make Your Voice Heard just went live at the start of the show. Of course, like we said, all this green on the screen means our vol friends taking a bit of a break right now. VIX 30.25, down about 1.65 points from where it was on Thursday's show. I remember the high it hit pretty much between shows was about 33.25. VVIX 104 at down about 6 points. So still north of the triple digits level, but down a wee bit. VXX at a 20, down about 0.8 of a point. Do we have to keep paying attention to it? I guess we do. I guess they're putting effort into it again, so I guess we have to watch it. UVXY 1180, down 0.8 of a point. SVIX 1080, up 0.4 of a point. UVIX 12.5, down 1.1 points. And VolQ at about a 34. That's also down 1.5 points. So, Mr. Uncle Mike, you are our victor this week, so you get pride of place. First off, any enduring memories you have on kind of the top heel? This guy was one of the top heel. Hard pressed to think of another heel that was hated as much as the Iron Sheik. This guy really, really did his job well. Of course, very close confidant, close advisor to The Rock. The Rock, shall we say, borrowed his term jabronis. That's where that comes from. So Iron Sheik, quite the influence on the wrestling world. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what are your thoughts? The Iron Sheik, the dreaded camel clutch, and then, oh yeah, we're rallying 2% in the market.
Yeah, well, I mean, with the Iron Sheik, I mean, he was an evil dude, and he did an amazing job at being an evil dude. I mean, you could make a case for, I'd say it's either him or Rowdy Piper being the two most hated wrestlers of that era.
Piper was a heel, but he got like cheers and stuff too. Like he could do both, he was kind of like a badass face heel in a way, I could see him working both, but because I kind of liked him as a kid. I like Piper. I never really hated Piper. But Iron Sheik, like everybody hated Iron Sheik, right? So they
did, but I mean, like Piper would go to greater lengths. If you look at some of his early days, so Pedro Morales was a huge hit in LA. And so Rowdy Piper wanted to get over as being this evil heel. And so he always said bad things about Mexican people. And then that got all the whole crowds to boo him all the time. And then so finally one day he got up there and he said, I'm going to sing on my bagpipes. I'm going to do the Mexican national anthem. I want to apologize to everybody. And then he proceeded to play La Cucaracha and it started a riot. And so I don't know if the Sheik ever quite got that kind of heat, but he definitely did. I mean, the fact that he's bragging about how much he loves Iran during the hostage crisis, I mean, that was impressive what he would come up with. And his camel clutch, I mean, you can't get out of the camel clutch. That's one of the most difficult moves to get out of. So
wrestlers could go to darker places back then than they could now by easily. Like, imagine that gimmick today. We have, some sort of Middle Eastern crisis going on, and we have a wrestler there just in your face, Puta America spitting out. Imagine that, or all the Piper stuff. You just couldn't do any of that anymore.
No, you couldn't. And I mean, there were some. It was definitely a different a different world back then, that's for sure. But anyway, with this today, it looks like we got the price of oil is coming up. And so that seems to be sparking the market indirectly, because I'm just looking through the sectors. Of course, XLE is up almost 5% on the day, and everything else is up a good amount. Consumer discretionary is the only sector that's not up on the day today. But oil's definitely leading the way with us to see energy is actually leading the way with this rally today. And so a lot of times what's concerning to me, being the ultimate bull with which I am, the concern to me is that I don't know if we can rely on energy for a longer sustained rally. Now, granted, yes, we do have technology up 2.5% on the day, but it's not the leader of the day. And so, yes, technology is beating the market as a whole, but it's not the leader. And so that is something that is of concern to me. The other concern to me is that, we were at the lows of the year last Friday at this time. So we are coming off the lows. So the argument would then be, is this kind of a dead cat bounce, or have we found the bottom, or is it going to be something kind of in the middle? I'm kind of in that camp, quite honestly. So we have those things that are working both for us and against us in the marketplace. I think right now, if you are a longer term bull and there's some stocks that you've been wanting to own for a while that you've just been putting off, now might be a time to consider selling some puts on those stocks to get into them. Or if you've been if you've had a lot of money in cash and you're kicking yourself because you didn't get in sooner, well, this could be the time. This could be the pullback with which you want. But in the near term, I think there's going to be some volatile markets just because of the fact that we're down a pretty significant amount for 2022. And we're going into the fourth quarter. Now, with that being said, does that mean that we're going to have a down year in the market? Does that mean that we might as well just write off 2022? No, not at all. A lot of times when we go down, when we are down this much going into the fourth quarter, a lot of times we come back. Sometimes we don't. 2008 is a great example of that. So I think right now I'm still very long-term bullish, but in the near term, very cautious as I have been. In the bond world, we are catching a little bit of a bid on the 10-year note today. So we're still holding off going any lower with that for the time being. But what's going to be interesting to see is that if all of a sudden the Fed says, okay, we're good, we've raised rates as much as we think we think we're going to pause, or if we get some type of something to where they say that the rate raising is going to be done, or at least hint at it, it'll be interesting to see if the 10-year catches a bid on that because of the fact that, are we at levels now to where the market is pricing in more rate increases, or the fear of more rate increases, and people want to kind of beat the Fed to the punch, or are where we need to be at this stage? So definitely food for thought with where we are going. Silver is up a ton today. Just looking at SLV, that's up 8% on the day. So we're definitely getting a little bit of a commodity boom for this market. And like I said, the fact that we're getting led by energy in this market, it's not something to where I could say that it's getting me extremely excited as of yet. So that's what I'm seeing in the world today.
All right, and now we turn to the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. Mr. Meatball, first, what are your thoughts on this top heel? I mean, unless you can think of a heel, Uncle Mike put up Piper. Maybe you can think of another heel that was even more infamous than the Iron Sheik, but he's certainly up there. What are your enduring memories of him, and how much did you dread the camel clutch as a kid? And then B, what else is lighting up your tape in today's Green Day?
I wouldn't say King Kong Bundy. I wouldn't go with like Ted DiBiase, but he was kind of a mid-card guy.
He was too busy robbing all of the state of Mississippi or whatever.
Was Andre the Giant a heel or a face?
He kind of worked both too. But he
turned heel at the end when he wanted to take on Hogan, and he'd always fight the Ultimate Warrior a bunch too.
Yeah, Big John Studd. He was kind of a good heel, but yeah,
when you had Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov coming into that ring, there was a lot of hate.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one. I kind of like all those. Yeah, Sergeant Slaughter was kind of went between both.
We don't discuss the Gulf War period of Sergeant Slaughter.
Yeah, no. I guess Macho Man at certain points was certainly a more popular heel, like a higher card. But no, I'm gonna go with you. I think Iron Sheik. I think you're right.
There we go. We have consensus. Right. Iron Sheik, the top heel of the 80s. You don't agree? Hit us up. Let us know, listeners. Send us your point. Maybe that's another good flash poll for our audience out there. Mr. Meatball, what's lighting up your tape in the markets today, sir?
Well, we're up, and bonds are, kind of everything is moving in lockstep. Bonds are up, dollars down, the whole market's up. The only kind of major stock that looks soft is Tesla. Tesla's down 9% while the whole market is up. That is so weird. And even the chips that have been so hated, they're running higher. Vol coming off. This feels very much like a good short squeeze. VIX just dipping below 30. We could, this is one of those ones where you could see a pretty big squeeze into the close, as you get some YOLO trading and some money jumping in. It's also the first day of the quarter, so that also means money is going to be stepping in and looking to trade here. So you do have a few things in motion here that are I think pushing the market higher.
Yes, I was wondering as well, how much of this is just the calendar, right? How much of this money has to be allocated here to start the quarter? And we get a little bit of a pop before the inevitable turn to the dark side. I'm curious, listeners, you guys hit us up, let you know what you think. Speaking of what you're saying in our chat, it was Brett Favre, as they say in something about Mary. The best line from that movie. Robbing the state of Mississippi. Sadly, he was a Packer. I blame the CT. Yeah, no, it was Ted DiBiase too. Ted DiBiase was doing it before Brett Favre was robbing the state. Looking into it, he had I think it was a faux religious charity that he started up, and he I'm pretty sure it was the same scam, pretty much. he was defrauding that whatever was going on with that welfare department. They were cutting checks left, right, and center. And Ted DiBiase and apparently Brett Favre all got in on the action out there. Probably CTE for both of them. But I digress. Let's get on out to what's going on out there in the markets right now. VIX doing decent paper. Back a couple of weeks ago, this would have been really impressive because we were under 400,000 ADV. That ADV has now soared to 531,000. So we are north of 500,000 contracts a day again, which is far more respectable for VIX, and doing 262 right now. So on a pace to probably hit that today. We shall see, unless things quiet off a little bit later in the session. SPY already putting up some numbers, closing on a 5 million, 4.9 million contracts. I guess SPY likes a good little pop, apparently. The ADV is just ridiculous. 8.86 million contracts. That is the ADV in SPY now. Man, we are hitting some numbers. Yes, 1.4 million. That's usually right now, that's a huge day. But we've seen crazier days now. We've seen 1.75 million by this time of day right now. The ADV 2.8, so we are exactly halfway there. So the S putting up some numbers these days as well, listeners. Also, small caps, not to be outdone. Small caps, at least the IWM flavor. Let's see, what is IWM up to right now? It is up 2.4% and doing 480,000 contracts right now, listeners. The ADV closing in on 1 million again, 983,000. Man, we are seeing some paper out there in small caps. By the way, we're hanging out at a 1689 right now in the Russell 2000. So far cry still from that magical 2000 level. And the Qs closing in on 1.6 million right now. The ADV 2.93 million. So the Qs doing some numbers today as well, even though the NASDAQ actually the laggard today, which is interesting. Let's get out into the single name most actives out there. And it's another one of those days, listeners, where we're seeing decent paper on the macro screen. That means the micro side looking a little light, but not terrible. Let's kick things off. Number 10, listeners. This shows you a bit of a lighter day when this name makes sense. This name does paper, but usually not enough to break into our top 10. Today, that is not the case. This is our old friend on oddities that has popped up a few times. This is Luminar Technologies, ticker symbol LAZR, LAZR. I kind of lumped this one in with the charge points and a few others where any given day, someone is rolling 40,000 puts or doing something else out here that's going to drive volume. And it's usually a bunch of weird nonsense for the most part. I've joked before we could do all of oddities every week just on charge point. You could lump LAZR into that as well. There's enough weird paper to dive into, but it's also not the most scintillating. But today we got some paper going up. I think LAZR came up on one of our scans. Let's see what they're up to really quick. I'm going to guess some crazy size roll. And oh, look at that. I'm right. 40,000 of the AQ expiring on the 7th, 7.5 puts. Looks like paper. Let's see, closing those out and rolling to the AQ expiring on the 14th. So rolling out a full week, 7 puts. So that's 80,000 contracts right there. It's a lot of that kind of stuff that goes up in LAZR, listeners. It's a lot of Sturm und Drang, not signifying a heck of a lot. But if you are intrigued, LAZR put up some numbers today. Trading $7.50 right now. LAZR right behind the artist formerly known as Facebook. This is Meta. 189,000 contracts for number 9 here for Meta. Facebook up about $2. Trading 137.65 right now. So again, also well below that 200 level we were all looking at with so much attention not too long ago. Remember, we talked recently, I think it was on oddities as well, about someone getting just run over on those Nove 200 calls. They spent a ton of money for them and hemorrhaged them out for nothing. So far cry from that. If you're feeling some pain right now in these markets, listeners, you could clearly be feeling a lot more. So be thankful you're not that Nove 200 person out there. 137 in Meta. Number 8, the artist formerly known as Google, now hanging out as Alphabet. Of course, good old Google. 191,000 contracts for them. Alphabet 98 and about $0.50, up to 83. So they're below 100 again, which is interesting. Then number 7, it's our friend Ford. They came for this one last week. They came for a lot of the car makers, and also car dealers like CarMax. Last week, it was just kind of an onslaught. This one getting a little bit of a pop today, back up about a quarter to about $11.50 out there, 2.3% for Ford. Ford getting some numbers now today, closing in on 250,000 contracts, 242,000 contracts. So number 7, that's a respectable number for number 7. If not, we've seen obviously much higher than that in the past. Number 6, back to the chips. It's NVIDIA. They've been coming for this sector of late aggressively as well. NVIDIA today popping nearly 4 handles. 380, 125, 20 or so out there right now. Good for a little bit north of 250,000, 254,000 contracts on the tape right now. Then we're going back to Brazil, listeners. Good old Pabst Blue Ribbon, a.k.a. Petróleo Brasileiro. This is, of course, good old PBR. The ADR out of Brazil, the old Petrobras here. 1379. We've joked about this one on oddities in the past, and good old Vale and others. All these energy names out of that region. Intriguing to watch today, doing some numbers. 312,000 contracts. Let's look really quickly to see if we can find what's going on in good old Pabst Blue Ribbon today. It is another roll. Looks like the AQ 1314 vertical going up 80,000 times. There's 160,000 contracts right there. Listen, so it's like we got, actually, it could be closing on both, so we'll see. But either way, that's $1.60 of your 312,000 contracts coming in that trade alone. Number 4, back to the chips, AMD. At number 4, we're still only at 340,000 contracts, listeners. So again, kind of a light micro day. AMD hanging out exactly at $66, up $265 right now, or a little over 4%. And again, good for 340,000 contracts. Then the top three pretty much have been locked for the last few weeks, at least, if not longer. Number three, the Amazonians, 381,000. We're all the way up at number three, listeners, and we're not even north of 400,000. That kind of shows you what kind of day we're having. 115.14 or so is where Amazon's hanging out right now, up 214 right now. And then we jump up a whole heck of a lot to number two. It's the fruit company, 973,000 contracts. Man, they are pumping this one today, up about 3 3/4 or 2 3/4%, trading right around 142 right now. We were in we had a 130 handle even just this morning. We were as low as 138.42 just this morning. So they're rallying this one today. Good for 973,000 contracts. That means number one, the big dog yet again. I don't know what Apple's going to be able to do to usurp this one. It seems like it has been, at least for now, permanently kicked to the number two spot, because Tesla putting up some numbers again, almost 2x what Apple is doing. 1.87 million contracts on the tape for Tesla. Man, they are bucking the trend in Tesla. Probably one of the reasons the NASDAQ is not keeping up with its peers out there. Tesla off 22 handles, or over 8%, almost 8.5%, trading right around 243 right now. Man, they are coming for this one today. They had a production and deliveries report that the market found no bueno today. So yeah, they're coming for good old Tesla today. And again, good for 1.87 million contracts. In terms of all things earnings, no new earnings. I do believe Mr. Matt traveling back from Chi-Town right now, back to his compound in the far northeast there. So I don't think we have updated earnings move results or earnings season reports yet. We'll get those for you as soon as we get them, listeners. We'll get them up over there on the website for you. But there are some earnings continuing to accrete as we are preparing for the tsunami to come soon. Not so much earlier this week, but later in the week, we've got McCormick. So you like your spice aisle there in the supermarket chain? There we go. We got McCormick popping off, where you got Conagra popping off as well. They own the Meatball's favorite Italian brand, Chef Boyardee's. And, of course, Constellation Brands. They own a whole bunch of stuff, including Mondavi, Svedka, and a whole bunch more. They own Modelo, you name it. And Friday, out to the cannabis lifestyle of Tilray, and all sorts of fun stuff going on out there as we keep on rolling into the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
Looks like our chat is just awakening to the many frauds of one Ted DiBiase. Yeah, I hate to be the bearer of bad news for you, chat, but yes, he took his money gimmick a little bit too seriously in real life. Ended up defrauding a bunch of people. Yes, good time. So yeah, Brett Favre. Well, first thing I heard when I heard about Brett Favre, I was like, that sounds a heck of a lot like what Ted DiBiase did. And lo and behold, it was. Let's get on out now to the old land of weirdness known as the Odd Block. Let's get some weird paper in our lives to wash off the stench of these shady wrestlers who are just defrauding people left and right out here. Let's get on out to this one. I do believe this is a newcomer to the name. This is EQNR. This is ticker symbol EQNR. This is out of Norway. They have a lot of commodity subsidiaries here. Obviously, an intriguing name. 34 and a third right now. I don't believe we have featured them on the Odd Block in the past. Obviously, with all the rally we've seen out there and a lot of the commodity and energy space, this thing's had a nice year. $26.50 a year ago. It shot up to its high for the year on about $42 on August 24th. It since then has come off. It's down to 34.33 where it is right now. It's still up about almost 30% on the year. So still a good year for good old EQNR ASA. Let's see what our Eye of Sauron found out there today. In a kind of light micro day, Let's see. Yeah, it looks like a pretty decent sized block here for this one. 10,000. Love these nice round numbers. They're going up. 10,000 of the April 40s. So I said the high for the year, 42.53. That was back in August. Someone coming in and pretty much stopping themselves out right at that level. They sold the 840s for $2.31. So pretty darn close to that 52-week high right there. This is, if you're wondering, a 41 vol. So again, not terrible. It's not going to be your triple-digit vol of your meme names that we're seeing out there, but not bad for a good old EQNR. The stock was pretty much right here at 34.45, so it hasn't really moved. There's obviously going to be earnings between now and April expiration. The next announcement for EQNR is a little bit later this month on October 28th. So probably going to have a couple of cycles baked into that. So you like that, listeners, going out all the way to April, giving up a couple of earnings cycles for $2.31. It's not the worst. I mean, it's a decent level in the stock. If we do get up there again, then he's dumping it effectively pretty darn close to the 52-week high. I have to imagine that played some part in his calculus here. Mr. Meatball, what are your thoughts on a pretty sizable, a little bit longer-term call sale here, topping themselves out right around the 52-week high in your new favorite name, EQNR, sir?
Oh, how did you know that I love EQNR?
It's your favorite. Everyone, you can't stop. You can't shut up about EQNR ASA.
I know. That's all I ever do is say, oh, yeah. Pretty good yield. What is that? About 6 months. If the stock gets taken out at that level and I'm long, it's a pretty nice level to get bought from. So I get it. I understand it. I think it makes some sense.
I don't hate it.
Yeah. It's not amazing, but it's a call sale. I don't hate it at all.
What I do hate is you just spamming our chat with nothing but EQNR all freaking day.
Sorry.
EQNR.
Sorry.
Love this name. Can't get enough of this Norwegian name. You guys should be. It's like the opposite of your hatred for Olive Garden is your love for all things EQNR, listeners. Loves it. Won't shut up about it. Let's keep rolling before he just keeps talking about it. Let's go on out to another newcomer. I'm trying to think if we have had this one on the show. It's been quite some time. I do believe this is a newcomer. This is Liberty Global PLC. Let's flip the script a little bit. We talked about dumping some calls in April. Maybe we'll explore the other side of this. Liberty Global right now trading 1740, up nearly $1 or 5.5%. So a nice little day here for good old Liberty Global. Easy for me to say. I can't say it. Liberty Global. Liberty Global PLC Class C. There we go. I said it all. A year ago was trading almost $30, about $29, and hit its high for the year right around that time of $30.50. And since then, it's been pretty much mostly down. In August is where they really took the next level down. They went from $23 down to $16.50. That was their low for the year on Friday. And then they have since rebounded a wee bit today. So a nice little pop for them today. But on the year, still off nearly 40%. So a rough year for them. And it seems like someone heard what we just talked about in good old EQNR. Let's see, what's the time frame on this? About an hour apart. So could be the same person, of course. Just doing a little bit of the old pairs trade, the old famous EQNR LBTYK pairs trade. Meatball won't shut up about this one as well. Someone scooping today 10,000. So again, the same round number of the April. Once again, April. These are the 20s. So we were talking the 40s before. This time we're talking the 20s. Looks like they paid $1.10 for these. This is a 37 vol on these bad boys. The stock was a little bit lower, 17.25. So they got a little bit of a tick in their favor with the stock. The next earnings is going to be in early November 3rd. So flipping the script entirely. Someone thinks good old Liberty Global PLC Class C has been just beaten up too much. And they said, you know what? We're diving back in, baby. We're paying $1.10 for the April 20s 10,000 times. Mr. Meatball, we're flipping the script. Our previous friend here was just writing a line to the upside saying, I'll get out at this level in good old your favorite EQNR. Now someone's saying, you know what? Hold the phone. I'm scooping it all. We're going to bounce hard here in your new favorite name, LBTYK. What say you, sir?
This is one I know I've been watching LBTYA, which had been seeing just massive inflows of upside calls at like the Jan 20s and the Jan 17.5s. So I'm not surprised to see this one. If you look at between the two of them, I'm assuming there's a Class C shares of the exact same company. LBTYA, which is the Liberty Global PLCA shares. And, if you go to January, they're long about 13,000 to 17.5. They're long 54,000 of the 20s and 18,000 of the OCK 20s, representing almost like 95% of the open interest. So there is something afoot in this name. I don't know what, but there is something afoot.
Well, they gobbled up all the Class A, so the next step, Class C, of course, right? Got to get it all. If you long Class A, you got to love the Class C, right? It's in for a penny, in for the pound, as they say over there, literally in England. All right, so yeah, this is an interesting one. We think about all this call love going up here in everyone's favorite name, listeners. Liberty, LBTYK. We'll get you out of here on this one. Again, kind of a weirdly light day, as it is these days in the micro side. Let's go back to a name we haven't talked about in quite some time. This is everyone's favorite Herb, a.k.a. EQNR block, ticker symbol HRB. Trading $41 right now. They're taking a little bit of a drubbing today, off nearly 4% or $1.56. Let's see, on the year, a little bit of a different story. A year ago was $25.71, and then they shot up to their high for the year. They hit that high for the year on August 18th of $48.76. And then since then, they've kind of been drifting lower back down about $8 to where they're right now, $40.95. Still up 60% on the year. So a good freaking year for EQNR block here, a.k.a. the Herb. Let's see what good old Herb has today. We've got 5,087 of the October 43s going up right on the bid for 85 cents. So someone coming in and deciding, you know what, this Herb's had a pretty good run. I'm going to take some of this juice while I can get it. This is a 34 vol, so nothing explosive. But then again, it is EQNR block, listeners. It's not, chippy Israeli biotech or something you expect a little bit more juice from. The stock was actually $1 higher, 41.87. So they got in at the right time. They could buy these bad boys back. They got a whole $1 in the stock for them right now. So not a bad do, as they used to say, down there on the trading floor already, looking pretty good. The earnings are on November 1st, so they're not going to have any earnings in this name either. This is just straight up harvesting a little bit of ye old risk premium, giving yourself a little bit of extra income on this name, and looks like so far it's working out pretty well. Mr. Meatball, what do you say to this call overwrite in everyone's favorite name, good old Herb?
Again, if you're looking to create some income, and look into, trying to kind of weather the storm, then call overwrites makes sense. These are relatively short dated. And they're in front of earnings, and 85 cents. If we rally to $43, you're getting a good 5% yield out of the sell of the calls. And if you're long the stock here, it's not a terrible trade.
Not terrible either, listeners. So we'll put that in the not terrible category. We got a couple not terribles. One kind of head scratcher, call by. We shall see as we keep on rolling. It's always a head scratcher. Is what the heck is Uncle Mike going to talk about? Let's find out. It is time for the strategy block.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the strategy block.
All right, everybody. It is that time. Buckle in. It's that time, listeners. Time for Uncle Mike to dispense some options, wit, and or wisdom. Uncle Mike, what you got in store for us this week?
What I talk about today is, let's say that you've been in cash and you're looking to dip your toe back in this market. And you maybe selling put, but you want to kind of leverage yourself a little bit, or you don't want to put that much capital into it. So a cash secured put would probably be one of my first instincts to go to, so to speak. But let's just say that you want to do something with a smaller amount of money on the table. So the next thought would be, okay, well, why not buy a long call option? Well, that one doesn't seem to be a very good fit, because when we have a VIX around the 30 level, it's not going to be cheap in whatever you do with it. So we have that concern. So then the next one is that, okay, well, maybe we can buy a call spread. So if we buy a call spread, we don't really have quite as much risk on the table, but I'm looking at the price of these call spreads, and it's still a little bit much for me. So the next level of something with which you could do if you wanted to buy an out of the money option of some sort and be bullish on it, something to consider would be an out of the money butterfly. Now, how would that work? Well, let's say that you're looking at XYZ stock. It's trading at maybe $50 a share, and you're thinking the stock has a shot at making a run at 55. Well, maybe what you could consider is buying a 55, 60, 65 call butterfly. I typically don't like to go out more than a month or so when I do these. And quite honestly, I don't do these types of trades very often anyway. But it's a good spot to be if you want to have some type of exposure, but you really want to mitigate volatility and time decay risk. Now, how will this work? Ultimately, what you're doing is you're buying one 55 call. You're then selling a 60 call. So there's your call spread. But at the same time, you're selling a 60-65 call spread. So the dream price at expiration would be $60 per share. However, we live in reality, not dreamland. So ultimately, what I typically like to look for if I'm ever going to buy an out of the money butterfly, it's usually for a smaller amount of money, but I'm looking to double that small amount of money. It's going to be kind of a double or nothing trade. Now, is it perfect? Does it work like that every time? No. Do I lose all my money every time? No. I usually get out at when I lose a good portion of it because it's a small amount I put on to begin with. But I don't think, very seldom do I ever just let it ride out to zero. What I'm looking for is to set up a trade in such a way to where when the stock is at 55, the butterfly itself doubles. Because of the fact that if it goes up too much, if you're and the butterfly could work against you because this stock went from 50 to 70 in theory, and you're going to have the butterfly at the same price because the term that you sold is going to work against you. Ultimately, this is a trade that you want to do if you want to dip your toe in the marketplace. You don't want to pay a lot of premium, and you're willing to get out when it gets to your price. Now, if the butterfly is not doubled by the time it gets to 5 in theory, that means there's been too much time to gain. You didn't get out quick enough or didn't move quick enough. And that's also a risk that you need to be aware of. So when doing a trade like this, make sure that you have experience with it and you have an understanding of it. Maybe even take a course from the option pit. They might be able to tell you a thing or two about butterflies as well. But it's something that I like to do. And full disclosure, I'm not in one right now. It's something that I like to look at when I want to buy some calls, but they're just too expensive for the time being. And that is my strategy lock for the day.
There you go. Everybody loves a good fly, even the uncleist of Mike's. And we always love a little bit of your feedback, so let's get to some of the old mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the Mail Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Mail Block. Your questions, your comments, also our questions of the week, also our live chat. I love our listeners. You guys are just the best. We got a nice debate going about the heels and the wrestling in the live. And we've got, got a good old Age saying he's going to a wrestling convention in Florida later this year. Magnum TA, I'm not familiar with him, and Dory Funk Jr. will be there. So I love our audience. They're in to all of the good stuff, which you gotta love. He also says if he had YouTube in high school, he would have flunked out watching wrestling. I think YouTube probably would have been the internet as a whole would have been a pretty dangerous thing. That's why it's so challenging with these kids right now. They have the entire world at their fingertips and they don't even know it. These kids today. Get off my lawn. Let's get on out to what we've got going on right now. Before we even get to that, let's pay off our question of the week from last week. We asked you folks last week. We've been looking at some of our questions of the week that we've been tracking throughout the year and how your opinions have evolved over the course of the year. And we like to revisit some of them to see if you guys still have the same conclusions. And last week we did that. We asked you, back in June, over 40% of you said that you were waiting until the S dropped to $37.50 before starting to buy that dip. Now it's time to revisit that question. Are you back in? So when we posted this, the S&P was ironically exactly where we are right now, right around 36.60, actually a little bit higher now, 36.72. Or are you waiting for lower levels? And over 2/3, 67.2% of you said you're waiting for lower levels. 20%, 20.3% said you are back in, so you're in the Uncle Mike camp. You're buying this market with both hands, baby. And 12.5% of you said you never got out. I feel for those of you in that latter category, hopefully you picked up a few tips or tricks, maybe from Uncle Mike's strategy block and listening to all of our shows over the years that you can learn as I destroy my studio here, as you can learn to help mitigate some of the pain. This week, once again, going back, we asked you guys back in May about this whole very contentious theory that we need VIX to really spike before we could signal that, you know what, the end is here in the broad market. We've hit the bottom. Back in May, 43% of you said that we did need that, but we needed a pretty modest VIX spike. We needed VIX just to get up to over 40. That's all you needed to really signal that the bottom was in. So we thought, good time to revisit that with VIX hanging out north of 30. At least it was when we kicked off the show. I'll have to check, see where it is right now. Quite simply, what level does VIX need to hit to signal the quote-unquote bottom in this market? Gave you three choices and a bit of an other. We gave you VIX north of 40, so back where you folks were voting last week, or earlier this year. VIX north of 50, VIX north of 60, or you don't agree with this theory. You don't think there is a VIX spike necessary to signal the bottom in the market. Let's go out to the greasiest of meatballs first. I know this has been an interesting talking point that he and I have discussed many times since that first big sell-off in the market back earlier this year. Mr. Meatball, what is your vote? And then B, more importantly, what do you think our audience is voting for?
You know, I'm going to say the audience is thinking that I don't think VIX needs to go to 40. I don't. But I do think that VIX is going to go higher. And I do think, you know, like I said, I think today's a short squeeze, not a giant buying opportunity. Audience, I'll say they're going to say the same thing.
So you think they're going to say no VIX spike necessary is what they're going to say?
No VIX spike necessary.
Okay, interesting. Mr. Uncle Mike, same question for you. Are they picking, or first off, what is your vote? And then B, is our audience, are they picking north of 40, north of 50, north of 60, or are they saying we don't need no darn VIX spike?
I will say we don't need no darn VIX spike. We've been living at levels in the high 20s for quite some time now, and a VIX below 20 in recent years is like a big deal. And so I think it's, how much more fear are we going to get?
Uh-oh. Uncle Mike says, how much more fear are we going to get? Let's see what you folks are saying right now. This just went live right before showtime, listeners. So all you folks on the on-demand, the podcast, will have plenty of time to vote. At Options is the place to go. It's pinned right now. If it's not pinned when you get there, there's other stuff popping off. We do a lot of shows, a lot of content, obviously, throughout the week, listeners. Just scroll down. You will find it. And right now, it's pretty close to a dead heat, but just barely taking it. Ironically, with 40% of the vote, is VIX north of 40. So 40% of you still feeling we need to get back up to that 40 level to really signal the bottom here. Right behind it is the Meatball and Uncle Mike group saying 35% saying you don't need a VIX spike. No VIX spike needed at all. And then 15% of you saying VIX north of 50 and 10% of you saying VIX north of 60. Get in there at Options. Make your voice heard. We will reveal the final results later on in the week.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to Around the Block. And as I say that, we have extended our rally, 3670 odd, going into the end of the show here. So up about 2.4% for the S&P. VIX has now dropped below 30, listeners, right around 29 3/4. So we are below 30 again out there, which is intriguing. Is this the new regime back below 30, or is this just the calm before the next leg of the storm? At Options is the place to make your voice heard as we go around the horn. Let's start with the uncleest of Mike's, a.k.a. our surprise guest on Crypto Rundown later today because he loves crypto so much. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what are you keeping an eye on until our Thursday episode?
I think you could call me the Iron Sheik of crypto for that show. I think that's probably the reaction I would get.
You would be a good heel for that show. That would be fun to bring you in here, the boos of the crowd. Yeah, it'd be fun.
I don't know if I can handle such resentment. Most people like me, so I don't know if I want to go to a place where I'm hated. just watching the rest of the week. We have non-farm payrolls coming up, our AKA or the unemployment report, whatever way you want to look at it. So we do have that coming up on Friday. That's a big event. The news media now is saying Putin is he's in a really bad spot in the war. So watching to see how that shapes out, and then just seeing where the dollar goes. So the dollar is a big component in all of this madness with which we have, and seeing where that goes.
Seeing where that goes, indeed. Mr. Meatball, same question for you, sir. What are you keeping an eye on until our next episode on Thursday?
Yeah, I mean, let's see what happens with interest rates over the next couple of days. We do have non-farms coming up. That's going to be a big deal. We're starting to get to eke toward earnings season, so that's another thing to keep in the back of our head. I'm kind of watching today. I want to see if we can close above the high from Friday, which was, in fact, 36.71.44. We got above it, but have not have kind of fallen below right now. So I'm very interested to see, what does the close look like? Are we going to get like a, kind of a big end of day squeeze into the close? And the answer is we might.
We might indeed, listeners. Unfortunately, that music means we will not have any more show, at least for this episode of the Option Block. But don't worry, listeners. If you need more in your lives and you're down with the crypto, or maybe you hate it, but you like to listen anyway. I know some of you fall in that camp. I've seen your messages saying, I hate crypto, but I still like Crypto Rundown. Either way, don't worry. We won't have Uncle Mike. We won't have a heel guest. We'll have Mr. Bill, old buddy Mr. Bill out there, he's fairly skeptical of all things crypto these days as well, but he's still diehard at the end of the day. He'll be joining us in a little bit on the old Crypto Rundown. And then we are playing a little bit with the pro schedule again this week, listeners. I've got some stuff to do tomorrow, unfortunately, so no pro Q&A tomorrow. But we will be doing it later on this week. And also, later this week, we'll be revealing the winner of the September Pro Trading Crate. So good luck to all of you folks out there. I wish you all could win, but there will be one. All right, let's go around the horn. When they say in Highlander, there can be only one. Maybe it will be you this time around. Let's go back around the horn. Let's go to the Uncle Mike. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, if folks want to reach out to you to discuss awesome 80s wrestling heels, perhaps in the Mid-South region, or anything else that floats there. But, also this market thing. Where should they go? What should they do? Oh, no. The technology gods have smote him down, listeners. I will just tell you where to go. StCharlesWealth.com is the place to go to begin your journey. And if you're not giving him a follow on the old Twitters, at Mike TOSAW, TOSAW, all one word. He's always tweeting out cool stuff there, as well as, of course, find him on the old YouTubes for his great video series there as well. And Mr. Meatball, when they're done consuming all of Uncle Mike's content, and let's say they want to read about VIX, maybe they want to get an edge trading VIX, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, go to options.com and check out everything we do. Also, my book is publishing today, Trading Options for Edge. So if you're a fan of the show and you want to learn about how I think and how I trade options, go to your local bookstore or Amazon or Barnes and Nobles or wherever and pick up your set copy of Trading Options for Edge, second edition, updated and expanded. It is far superior to the original because it is hardcover and in color. So very easy and beautiful to read the charts.
Well, awesome. Congratulations on that new book hitting this. I'll have to get a few in here into the old vault so we could have some fabulous prizes for our fantabulous winners. I know they liked your previous edition, so I'm sure they will like. In the meantime, listeners, head on over to optionpit.com, learn more, or type his name. He's easy to find. Mark Sebastian, you know how to spell it, over there on the old Amazonians. And you too can get the updated, sweet edition of the old Trading Options for Edge. That's going to do it for the Option Block today. Back, like I said, for all you pro folks in a little bit with the old Crypto Rundown. And again, tomorrow we are dark on the live tomorrow, but then back again later this week for all your usual array of goodness. All you live folks, our pro folks, already got a double dose of Options Bootcamp live last week and a double dose of Options Playbook Radio last week. But all you on-demand folks will be receiving those later this week. And then, of course, back again for the Option Block on Thursday. In the meantime, stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.